and let us all do we can to build a better future.
From one meltdown to another, we are witnessing now, for the first time, the people in the United Kingdom, especially the British government, have its own meltdown because of the recent victory of George Galloway, who has returned to Parliament. George Galloway, who has been unapologetic and has been extremely critical of the genocide that's taking place in Gaza. And the UK had an establishment meltdown. So first, I think it's important for us to actually see just what the hell is going on. So first, I want to pull up this video from Glenn Greenwald, all right? And I will play this video out for a good portion of time and give a pause here because I don't want to interrupt Glenn because he does a fantastic job in breaking down the freak out of George Galloway's victory, which I have to say is a phenomenal analysis by Glenn Greenwald. So let's go ahead and bring it up. And don't worry, folks, even I got that video from the British Prime Minister crying out his tears.
Here's an example of that same sort of lack of adherence to principle that I think is a huge plague on our political culture. And it came today in the UK. In the UK, yesterday, there was a election that's called a by-election, where a member of parliament leaves early, they resign, or they get another job. And then there's a vacancy in parliament that has to be filled with what's called a by-election. It's sort of like if like, say, Michigan just had an election on Saturday, there's no national election. It's just a very local election to choose who will be the member of parliament for that constituency. And it was held by the Labour Party, the center-left party in the UK that is expected to win the prime ministership next year under Sir Keir Starmer. And it was considered to be a somewhat safe spot for Labour, except that a former Labour Party member of Parliament, George Galloway, who is a Scottish leftist, has always been known as that. He was one of the most vocal and eloquent opponents of the invasion of Iraq. He came to Congress and testified and gave this like masterclass in political rhetoric. He's been elected to Parliament before. He got expelled from the Labour Party in 2003 because he was a critic of the Iraq War, and the Labour Party under Tony Blair was leading the UK into the Iraq War, and so his opposition to the war in Iraq got him expelled from the Labour Party. He then got reelected as an independent, lost his seat, and now he was running mostly in opposition to two things: the NATO war in Ukraine and US-UK support for the war in Israel. And the Labour Party candidate, who everyone thought was going to win, ended up getting, the Labour Party ended up renouncing him because he became too critical of Israel in phone calls, and he apologized, but the Labour Party wants nothing to do with Israel critics, so they basically renounced their own candidate, and that led to a smashing victory by George Galloway. He got more votes than all of his opponents combined.
So what does that tell you about the Labour Party? They didn't like anyone that was going to be critical of Israel. That doesn't show you just the power of Israel's influence in not only the United Kingdom, but we here in America know of it all too well. It should show you that there's a turning point happening, that people are starting to witness and become more aware of the propaganda that we're being exposed to. And let's be clear, people are starving in Gaza. People are dying in Gaza. The number's already past 30,000. It's going to get to 40,000 very soon. Do I want us to get to that number? Oh, heck no. No. But we're going to get, once we get to 40,000, we're going to get to 50,000, because I think no matter what happens, the Israeli government is doing everything they can to try and placate the Western governments and anyone that's part of their sphere of influence into trying to keep their people silent and to shut up and quit questioning what's going on there. But we do have to question what's going on there because there's a genocide happening there. People are dying. Gaza has been turned into a moonscape. I have no idea what reconstruction looks like. I have no idea if it's even possible at this point, the amount of destruction that has happened in Gaza. The city of Rafah, home to 1.4 million refugees now. And there's already talks of the military actions taking place there. People need food. People need shelter. People need medicine and resources necessary to survive. Just how much higher will the death toll get?
And because he's such a vehement opponent of the war in Ukraine. He's often accused of being a Russian agent. And here is this person, Paul Mason, in the UK. He used to be known as a leftist. He's now moved much more to the center. He tried running for parliament earlier this year and he lost. And he published a thread today about George Galloway's victory, particularly angry because Galloway opposes the war in Ukraine. And this is what he said, quote, Galloway's victory in Rockdale is a, quote, which side are you on moment, both for the left and Democrats everywhere, meaning Democrats more broadly. And then he went on to say this, if George Galloway uses Parliament to push Russian TV-style disinformation, then we need a united cross-party militant defense of democracy. The National Security Act of 2023 does not exempt MPs from its provisions. The National Security Act of 2023.
You heard that, right? Screw what the people voted for. See, the whole idea of democracy is that, you know, people want to choose a representative or who's going to stand up for them in the government. And then once the voters, vote and the votes are tallied up, whoever wins said election, hey, they won. Okay, I mean that's it's the will of the people. Paul Manson, listen, buddy. You know what do you mean by a united militant front, a defense of democracy? The whole idea of democracy is voters to pick who they want. You don't want to hear about the will of the people? You don't want democracy to be in action? All of a sudden, things are making you uncomfortable because your little system is starting to crack. The machine is starting to, fart out. Yeah.
23 was a new criminal law enacted in the UK designed to criminalize people who were supposedly allied with the Russian government or pushing pro-Russian disinformation, meaning any opposition to the war in Ukraine. And here you have a prominent left liberal figure calling for the parties in the UK to unite to prosecute George Galloway for his opposition to the war in Ukraine under the National Security Act of 2023. And this is what Western liberalism has become more than anything. They all think the same ways in countries. And by all, I just mean the dominant factions. Obviously, there are always exceptions. But they really believe that they are not just justified, but duty-bound to embrace the most repressive and the most classically authoritarian measures, censoring people, spying on them, putting them in prison with no due process, even prosecuting them under the national security laws for their dissent, essentially saying we need to become authoritarians and tyrants because we need to save democracy.
We need to become tyrants to save democracy. We need to become dictators to save democracy. Gee, how very Trumpian of them. But let's look at this kind of meltdown, none other from their own British Prime Minister. Hang on, folks. This is pure gold.
In recent weeks and months, we have seen a shocking increase in extremist disruption and criminality.
What?
What started as protests on our streets has descended into intimidation, threats, and planned acts of violence. Jewish children fearful to wear their school uniform lest it reveal their identity. Muslim women abused in the street for the actions of a terrorist group they have no connection with. Now our democracy itself is a target.
How? Why? Because what? George Galloway won? That's democracy's a target now.
Council meetings and local events have been stormed. MPs do not feel safe in their homes.
Well, first of all, maybe if politicians did their jobs, maybe if politicians actually did the will of the people and actually look out for their constituents and citizens, and I say this worldwide, maybe if you prime ministers and you ministers and you cabinet people and you senators and you representatives and all these people, maybe if you actually, did your job, maybe people wouldn't be angry with you, just throwing it out there. Just throwing it out there.
Long-standing parliamentary conventions have been upended because of safety concerns. And it is beyond alarming that last night, the Rochdale by-election returned a candidate who dismisses the horror of what happened on October.
What does it say about a prime minister who decides to weigh in on an election for one person who's going to be in Parliament now, the Prime Minister who's supposed to be in charge of the whole country, weighing in onto one key seat. Thing is, what does this tell you about the Prime Minister? He's triggered by George Galloway. He does this whole speech, and he does a good 55 seconds into it before he mentions George Galloway's name. He brings up people being abused and hurt and all this other stuff. Look, folks, and that's not cool. No one should be hurt and harassed in the streets. And you know what? Just to be clear here, politicians deserve to be criticized. And because let's face it, they're politicians. They're supposed to do their job. And when's the last time a politician has ever done his job for the people? Right? But this prime minister right here is so afraid because his masters, I mean, his donors, I mean, his advisors. Sorry, I don't know why. That took me a third time to get to the A word. Advisors probably told him, oh, we got to say something about this because it's going to upend everything. It's going to make us look bad. A prime minister is afraid of the will of the people, that democracy took place, that the actions of the citizens in that one city made their voices heard. Okay? Now, before anyone gets upset and says, well, gee, you're pro George Galloway. Well, the will of the people in that one election made a decision. Just like, hey, what happens in here in the United States if a Republican senator wins or a Democratic senator wins or if an independent wins? It's by the will of the people. It's what the people want. And in Politics 101, hey, this is how it is. Politics 101, worldwide international class is convincing voters that you are the better candidate and that you can inspire enthusiasm and get the job done. George Galloway passed that class and understood the assignment. That's just how it's played out in democracy. That's just how it is. But this one prime minister is so triggered, he brings up George Galloway's name. 55 seconds in.
The seventh, who glorifies Hezbollah and is endorsed by Nick Griffin, the racist former leader of the BNP.
Oh, you're making a lot of assumptions and accusations and allegations.
I need to speak to you all this evening because this situation has gone on long enough and demands a response not just from government, but from all of us. Britain is a patriotic, liberal, democratic...
I don't know who that guy is who's yelling at him, but I can't understand a single word he's saying, but I hope it's vitriol towards this prime minister because that guy's pure gold. You got a good voice on you, buddy, wherever you're at.
Society with a proud past and a bright future. We're a reasonable country and a decent people. Our story is one of progress, of great achievements and enduring values. Immigrants who have come here have integrated and contributed. They have helped write the latest chapter in our island story. They have done this without being required to give up their identity.
I don't believe that at all. Okay? Let me tell you something. A lot of these migrants are being displaced because, again, of the needless, stupid wars that are happening. Okay? Reason why there's massive migration is because of war. Because, I don't know, maybe it's not good to, I don't know, start a business in a war zone. Maybe it's good. Maybe it's not good to, have a family or start a family in a war zone, It maybe because it's kind of dangerous and you kind of look around and be like, maybe we need to get out of here. Which probably what explains why there's such massive migrations all over the Middle East, North Africa, Central and South America. Because of coups and regime change wars and dictators and tyrants and military interventions. I don't know. How about this? This is going to be very controversial. How about peace, diplomacy, ending the wars? I don't know. Is that a bridge too far? Probably.
You can be a practicing Hindu and a proud Briton as I am, or a devout Muslim and a patriotic citizen as so many are, or a committed Jewish person and the heart of your local community, and all underpinned by the tolerance of our established Christian church. We are a country where we love our neighbors and we are building Britain together. But I fear that our great achievement in building the world's most successful multi-ethnic, multi-faith democracy is being deliberately undermined.
How? But because the voters picked George Galloway? That's how voting's done. Look, let's exclude the island of Great Britain. No offense to my beautiful UK audience members, okay? I love all of you. Let's go right here back to the good old USA. election night happens. Let's say Donald Trump wins. There's going to be a lot of people crying. Liberal tears will be delicious. But why would Trump win? Oh, maybe it's because of the will of the people. No, let's say, hey, let's do an Uno reverse. Let's say Biden wins. Let's say he's somehow still coherent enough and capable to still maintain his nomination and win the general election. All right, well then, will of the people. All right. And again, look, America doesn't really have a normal democracy. We have a thing with, the Electoral College. But no matter what, right? Voters choose. Obviously, the Electoral College weighs in. Whoever wins the most Electoral College votes, bingo bongo, becomes president of the United States. You got to accept it for what it is. Same thing with our senators and House representatives, even if it's an independent one. Why? Let's look at the situation a long time ago when good old Jesse the Body Ventura ran. He ran as an independent. He beat the snot out of the Republican and Democratic candidate. Why did he win? Because he convinced the voters, keyword voters, that he was better than both the Republican and Democratic candidates that were running for governor. But somehow now, our politicians, our presidents, our prime ministers are now afraid of the will of the people. What does that tell you? Do our leaders really care about democracy? About your vote? They only care about your vote so long as you play around and play by their rules. That's the only way they care. But as soon as you step out of line, get ready for that jackboot.
There are forces here at home trying to tear us apart. Since October the 7th, there have been those trying to take advantage of the very human angst that we all feel about the terrible suffering that war brings to the innocent, to women and children.
So you're going to call for a ceasefire? Hello? Hello, sir? Sir? Are you going to call for a ceasefire? I hear nothing.
To advance a divisive, hateful ideological agenda. On too many occasions recently, our streets have been hijacked by small groups who are hostile to our values and have no respect for our democratic traditions. Membership of our society is contingent on some simple things: that you abide by the rule of law, and that change can only come through the peaceful democratic process. Threats of violence and intimidation are alien to our way of doing things. They must be resisted at all times. Nearly everyone in Britain supports these basic values, but there are small and vocal hostile groups who do not. Islamistic.
I watch he's going to be dropping names. So that means, oh no. And then again, because he mentioned George Galloway's name, he's now the prime minister's association is associating George Galloway with dictators and tyrants, fascists, disruptors, Islamic terrorists, all this stuff. That's what he's going to be tying his name to that. This is a reaction, an emotional reaction by the establishment towards the votes of the people. The people. Citizens around the world. Your democracies have been bought and corrupted by neoliberalism. Wake up.
Extremists and the far right feed off and embolden each other. They are equally desperate to pretend that their violence is somehow justified, when actually these groups are two sides of the same extremist coin.
What? Mr. Prime Minister, can you care to elaborate? Here, you know what? Here, let's trigger the Prime Minister. Hey, everybody, give it up for George Galloway.
I don't know why he has procrastinated so long in making a final total break with Labour and leading something himself. If he was here now, I would say to him, you saw what happened last night. Set up, announce an alliance of the remaining socialists in the country. You lead it. I'll support it. You be the leader. And let's go. Time is running out. The general election might be 3 months from now. And I wish I knew why he had procrastinated, because if he left Labour at the moment that he should have, at the peak of his powers, he'd have taken a couple of 100,000 people with him. And that's a force. You know, not many parties in Europe have a force like that. He could have led it. And he must avoid being a wasting asset. He is a very considerable asset. And everyone loves him. But he should be careful that he doesn't waste the remaining opportunity that exists. If he won't, then we will. We'll run ourselves. We'll support independence where we don't run ourselves. And we'll do that. But we'll be weaker because of the absence of Jeremy Corbyn at the head of it.
Now, it seems to me, I'm just going to give my opinion here. And UK audience, please correct me if I'm wrong. I hope Jeremy Corbyn isn't like our Bernie Sanders, all right? Because I remember at the height of his power, especially what Labour did to Jeremy Corbyn, you know, if he did, he would have brought a lot of people with him to this new party. Same thing if Bernie Sanders had, you know, a spine, a heart, a soul, and balls, and actually said, hey, F you, DNC convention of 2016. I'm taking my people. We are rolling up out of here. Boy, that would have been a sight to see. But the truth is, folks, and this goes to everyone around the world, George Galloway, look, I respect his work, and he's only one man. But the real truth is, politicians are not the knights on the hill. They're not going to be doing that Rohirrim charge that we saw at the end of, or, you know, in the movie, The Return of the King. You know, it's a glorious scene. Even George Galloway will tell that to you himself, too. You know, show him what he needs to do so he can lead, and he will follow. It's up to the people to lead. It's up to the people to push forward. It's up to the people to build a better future. I want to pull up one other video here. Shout out to George Galloway as well. Let's go ahead and play this video.
I'm standing here at George Galloway's campaign headquarters. George Galloway, did you just watch the Prime Minister's speech?
I didn't watch it, but I understood the first part of it related to the Rochdale by-election.
The Prime Minister has just said that your election of you to Parliament is beyond horrifying. What do you say to that?
Well, I can understand how disappointed he is about the by-election. The Conservative Party, which is the government of the country, was crushed, not just by me, but by an independent candidate that no one had ever heard of before outside of Rochdale. So it was a disastrous night for the Conservatives and a disastrous night for Labour. I got more votes than Labour and the Conservatives and the Liberal Democrats and the Reform Party put together, which adds up to a pretty crushing rejection of the two-party system. So I understand why he's alarmed.
I want you to address some of the specifics that the Prime Minister said about you this evening. He said that you backed Hezbollah. Is that true?
I don't know what that means, backed Hezbollah. I oppose Israel's occupation of Lebanon, and I respect the right of people in occupied territory to resist their occupier. And I've done so since Hezbollah was formed and Israel occupied much of Lebanon, right up to the Litani River, regularly bombing Beirut and so on. So I'm not sure what business that is of his, because you see,
Hezbollah are a terrorist organization.
Actually, they're part of the government of Lebanon, a country with which we have sovereign diplomatic relations. I had
gotta love how the reporters just say, "Hey, they're that," but he's, you know, George Galloway's right. Lebanon does have political relationships with Great Britain.
This debate with Sky's Anna Botting in 2006. It's quite an epic clip. You should watch it. More than 100 million people have. They said all these things about me in the by-election. And in the by-election, it was them that got crushed in the democratic process. So I'm not sure why he would reheat it now.
The Prime Minister is saying
talk
that
as if this is God. We're talking about little Rishi Sunak in the fag end of his prime ministership. Don't talk to me as if he's come down from the mount with tablets of stone. The things that he says are somehow meant to awe me. They may awe you, they don't awe me.
A lot of people have.
Dude, listen to the reporter from Sky News. Listen, you have an opportunity to interview a historic win. An independent candidate wins a key election. The British Prime Minister is so triggered by this guy. You're asking dumb questions. Hey, George Galloway, come on my show.
Just watch what the Prime Minister said. This is your opportunity to respond to what he said.
Well,
he says that there are forces here at home trying to tear us apart. He is implying you are a divisive figure.
Well,
you have run an
that's-
election campaign that has tried to appeal, particularly,
And who
not
won?
entirely,
Who
to
won?
one section of the community.
won?
Who won? Who won? Who won? Who has the World Heavyweight Championship around their belt? Huh? Or around their waist. Sorry. Who has the World Heavyweight Championship belt around their waist? Huh? Who has it? You, Mr. Reporter, or me? The answer is me, George Galloway.
The election, me or Rishi Sunak? I've got the Democratic mandate here, not Rishi Sunak. He didn't even come second. He was lucky to come third. So
That's funny.
don't put to me statements made by Rishi Sunak as if I'm supposed to be impressed by them. He don't impress me much.
We at Sky have spent some time today on the streets of Rochdale, and there are people who say that they feel intimidated by people like you and the people that have supported you.
I have just won.
And they have pointed out that
He just won, baby. You got to take care. Oh, man, this is beautiful. Pure gold.
you have concentrated your campaign on foreign affairs, and they worry that Rochdale will not
I
be
have
the
a
winner.
mandate. That's my answer to you. I was just elected with a thumping majority by the electorate in Rochdale. That's all that matters to me.
So why are there people in the streets of Rochdale today worried?
Well, people voted yesterday, and they voted for me. Why is that difficult for you to grasp?
Oh, man. You know, even watching this again, it's just like, it's beautiful. Hold on. We're watching it again. Watching it again. I'm sorry.
I was just elected with a thumping majority by the electorate in Rochdale. That's all that matters to me.
So why are there people in the streets of Rochdale today worried?
Well, people voted yesterday, and they voted for me. Why is that difficult for you to grasp?
Why are there people on the streets worried?
There may be people who didn't vote for me who are worried, but the majority, the thumping majority, voted for me. I've got the mandate, and I'm going to the House of Commons with it.
And it's a mandate, you think, to do what? Because there are people that listen to what you say about whether or not Israel has a right to exist, what you say about what many Jewish people think are threatening
We had this
slogans.
conversation last night. Why are you reheating it?
Because in the light of the Prime Minister's
Don't keep
statement,
telling me about the Prime Minister as if he was Moses.
do you not respect the Prime Minister?
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Everyone's there laughing. Like, notice the crowd starts building up, right? I should have introed that in the video, but like, notice, like, the longer this conversation goes on, the more people show up behind good old Georgie. Hang on.
What many Jewish people think are threatening
We had this
slogans.
conversation last night. Why are you reheating it?
Because in the light of the Prime Minister's
Don't keep
statement,
telling me about the Prime Minister as if he was Moses.
do you not respect the Prime Minister?
Do I respect the Prime Minister? I despise the Prime Minister.
Oh, yes.
Guess what?
That is outstanding. Pure gold. It's the truth. I mean, come on. If this isn't pure gold, if you're not laughing on your way to work right now, I just don't know what to tell you, because that is just fun. And he's just like, yeah, I said the Prime Minister is a piece of shite. Put that in the headline. I don't respect him. Oh, no, the Prime Minister is probably curling himself up in the blanket. He bloody well doesn't respect me. And Piers Morgan is there cuddling right behind him. But does he condemn Hamas? Do you condemn Hamas? Hummus. Hold on, one more time.
About whether or not Israel has a right to exist, what you say about what many Jewish people think are threatening
We had this
slogans.
conversation last night. Why are you reheating it?
because in the light of the Prime Minister's
Don't keep
statement.
telling me about the Prime Minister as if he was Moses.
Do you not respect
Yes.
the Prime Minister?
Do I respect the Prime Minister? I despise the Prime Minister. And guess what? Guess what? Millions and millions and millions of people in this country despise the Prime Minister. I don't respect the Prime Minister at all.
Period.
What are you planning to do next week when you?
George, listen, George, in the off chance you or one of your supporters see this video, come onto my show. I'm going to ask you smarter questions, okay? Come onto my show in the morning, start your morning right or afternoon right, wherever it is in the UK, with Hard Lens Media. All right, George? Because this man is wasting your time. The look on George's face, he's like, man, I got a billion other things better to do than listen to this MFer talk to me. George, this is my one criticism of you right now, because I actually did send a message to invite him to be on our show. So we'll see if that happens. We'll see if that happens. I did that yesterday. We'll see if that happens. We shall see. But nonetheless, come on, George. You're wasting your time with this boy. This boy's stupid.
You arrive in Parliament.
Well, I'm meeting the Speaker on Monday morning, and then I'll be introduced and sworn in. I'll be escorted by the Right Honourable David Davis MP, former Deputy Leader of the Conservative Party. I don't know why he would do that if he thought I was the kind of man you're clearly implying that I am. David Davis is one of the great parliamentarians of today and this age. And I'll be taking my seat in the House of Commons and speaking for the people of Rochdale. That's what I was elected to do.
And what?
Oh, God, George, you're wasting your time. Even the audience is like, man, this report doesn't know what he's doing.
Is your message also to Keir Starmer?
My message to Keir Starmer is that the skids are under you in scores of Labour seats up and down the country, because you've lost the trust, you've lost the confidence of millions of your traditional loyal voters.
Now we have now had an election where two of the candidates have alleged intimidation. The Prime Minister referenced that intimidation in his address on the steps of
to the Prime Minister as if that's supposed to impress me. The Prime Minister is the Prime Minister is a rather diminutive, diminished and degraded politician.
Oh, he's dropping the D's. You know, the Prime Minister needs to play some more dodgeball. He needs a duck, dodge, dive, dip, and dive and dodge again. That's if you could, Mr. Prime Minister, if you could dodge a wrench, you could dodge a ball. Dropping the D's.
He made a party political statement. I don't care about Rishi Sunak's attitude. What I care about is that the returning officer, a man of unimpeachable integrity, I'm sure you'll agree, declared it a free and fair election, and me as the winner, and Rishi Sunak as one of the crushed two big parties in the state.
So why are two candidates?
Keep repeating the same questions to me because I have other people to talk to.
Yes, speak to Hard Lens Media.
So let's make this the last one, shall we?
We got a party to go with.
Allegations of intimidation, allegations that your supporters intimidated
That's
other candidates.
5
What do you think?
times you've said that. The returning officer declared it last night. You were there as a free and fair election, and me as the winner.
And the Electoral Commission today have said that they're going to look and talk to the parties.
You have to just suck it up. I won the election.
Yes! Yes! Yeah!
Thank you very much indeed.
Hold on. Let's see if we can look at the reporter's face.
George Galloway, thank you very much indeed.
Oh, did your feelings get hurt? He's like, my feelings got hurt. Man, that's a huge crowd there too, man. You're like, dude, you know how I would describe this reporter? He's like a stand-up comedian that fails to make the crowd laugh, man. So someone get that hook and drag him off stage. Drag that boy off stage. George Galloway, my only criticism of you is you stood there for 7 minutes. You just should have slapped him in the face like that I walked right off. But nonetheless, what does this tell you about how triggered the media and the UK government is towards, you guessed it, George Galloway winning? The meltdown is pure gold. That takedown was pure gold. And all I have to say is the will of the people, it will be oppressed and stopped by the establishment system, because they don't want you, no matter where you're at, even in the United Kingdom, anywhere in Europe, anywhere in Canada, even here in the United States. The will of the people needs to be heard. And these politicians who have built this neoliberal nightmare don't like you guys voicing your thoughts, your opinions, and picking people that will represent you and your beliefs. Break away from the system, folks. Perhaps this is only the beginning. Maybe we are on the step towards a better future. Maybe.